Here is a look at your gap and go trades for the week of March 31st through April 4th. I will go over price targets on the 5-minute time frame, have a gap recap from March 24th through the 28th, and update the chart as well. Hi everyone, it's Dow on the Dow. First up is Unilever. We ended the week at $59.18, up 0.87%. This is where we are. To the north side, it takes us back to the middle of the trend and the baseline, which is very close to where we are, and that is 59.26. Above that, at another level of resistance and a potential take profit area, roughly 59.67. At 3 standard deviations, roughly 59.89. And should we be so lucky as to get back to this level on Monday, but don't hold your breath, that would take us to $60.10. To the south side, at negative 2 standard deviations, takes us back to an area we've been to before. I will just mark that out. And that is roughly 58.79. Below that, at another level of support and a potential buy-in area and a potential stop loss area, 58.59. And below that, 58.36. Now I'm going to delete this line, which is an area we've been to in the past, the week of Monday, March 24th. I marked that out, but because this is so close to that, I don't need all these lines. I do it just to give myself an eyeball on a bigger time frame to see where we are. But I will go through and I'm going to delete this yellow line. That was a line that I marked out in 2024, but because we're back to that level again, I will delete that. That was marked out on Monday, December 9th of 2024. I will delete that. Now let's go back, option R, and let's take a look at one other thing. As you can see, we are still in an upward channel on the 5. By the end of the week, if we continue to go up, the middle of the trend could take us to 61.18. Again, we're at 59.18. And then the outer band, 61.61 and roughly 60.76. Of course, things just don't go up in an escalator fashion. We get whipped around all over the place. But right now, we are headed up. And looking left, let's mark out some gaps that will still be in play for this week. This one opened up on Tuesday, March 11th. So there is one gap. There's another gap that will take us to 61.61, but we're not there, which is something to be aware of. This gap, let's do this one next. Still hasn't closed, so it's still in play. Oh, wait a minute. We went down, so we will gap up. Yep. So that is still in play. Taking us to 59.69. Yeah, that's all right. I thought I marked something wrong. And let's clean up this 59.19. Well, we actually touched, again, when I draw this out, I have no idea where it's going to end. I just draw it out, and then that's why I have to go clean it up. But we touched right there on Friday the 28th. So congrats if you went long when we were south of that area. Down here, making our way, retracing back up. So that gap is done. And what about this red gap to the south side? That will take us down to 58.71. That is still in play. But again, we are moving farther away from that gap. Just something to be aware of. And we've got gaps to the downside as well, but not in the channel, not in the zone, not even close. Note the clear run up at support, the buy-in. This is resistance. We busted through, fell right back down, and then landed on what was once the middle of the trend that has now turned into support. That's done. All right, yeah. Let me go to the next one. I was just staring at some I was looking over here, that looked a little wonky, but I think that's correct. Okay, Estee Lauder is the next one. We ended the day at 65.42. Again, all I'm looking at is from this period Monday to Friday. This little area, that's all I'm looking at, one day at a time though. This is price targets for Monday. And then towards the end of the week, we could also hit some key levels that I will point out. So the middle of the trend is here. Last week we were here, so we went down. And as a matter of fact, how much did we go down? Roughly from here to here is 2.81%-ish. But we did go from the low point here to here, and that is roughly 3.16%. You can play it up or play it on the way down. Depends if you like to go short or long. All right. So that's the middle of the trend, 65.74. Let me move this out of the way. 66.87. Don't hold your breath. 67.43. And definitely, I do not anticipate we get to this level on Monday, 67.98. To the south side, one level of support, 64.62, 64.05, and roughly 63.50. If we go up, this could be resistance here, and we just grind sideways, or we could follow this green line down. Now, let's clean up the gaps from the previous week. This gap, this red gap, is still in play. I will extend that out, taking us down to 65 bucks. This gap opened up on Friday, still in play for the upcoming week, taking us to 66.90. And then what about the previous? Okay, that's done. I've cleaned up these other gaps, it appears. Well, yeah. All right, we're looking good for Estee Lauder. Do we have anything to haunt us to the south side? I think that was it. $62.29 is the 52-week low. Now, by the end of the week, if we continue our pattern going down, the middle of the trend is 64.83, 63.70, and 65.94. Next, Sofi, bleeding out again. 11.85 is where we ended. We are at resistance. The next level of resistance takes us to $12. That used to be an area where analysts predicted the price to hit $12, and we did hit that a long time ago. And 12.15 to the south side. 11.56. Where were we the week before? So last week we were here, and now we are here, still in a downward channel. Support, 11.27. Support taking us back to an area we've been to. The yellow lines are from 2025 or 2024, and there is 10.99, that spot in the blue line. Okay. And again, from here to here, still in a downward channel. Middle of the trend could take us to 863, 833, and potentially 891. There will be a fight though. So all we've done is retrace, made some money, flopped back down. The 52-week low is 601. Now looking left again, I want to clean up any gaps that I have. So this gap opened on Tuesday, closed on Wednesday. So this gap is done, taking us up. Let me hit Option R. All right, this gap takes us to 1307, but we are moving farther away from it into this week. And this one takes us to 1340. Again, not in the channel, not in the zone, not even close. Now this gap to the downside takes us to 1290. And where did we touch? We touched right here on Thursday, the 27th. That opened up on the 24th. And, oh, this gap taking us down to 1140 is still now in play for this upcoming week. We have not ripped the Band-Aid off to finish it out, but this week, -2 standard deviations right now takes us to 1127. This is 1140. So I anticipate this gap will be closed to the downside at 1140. I think that's an easy target. And what else? Oh, what about, okay, that's done. All right, that is Sofi. The next one is Tsly. We ended the day at 832. The middle of the trend is 843. The week before, where were we? Here. We were this line at 852. We're now at 832, but obviously we fell down and then we rode back up here and here. So that is a return of roughly 17% in 1 week. Nice. Beats the bank's return all day long, and you basically just doubled. If the S&P 500 returns 8 to 10%, let's just say 8 conservatively, you double that is 16 in a year. You just did that in a week. Beautiful. All right, so we're looking from here to here. That's the middle of the trend. We're still in a downward channel. 801, 755, 828. Now, let's start to clean up these gaps from this week. We had a gap. We gapped up. We filled down. There's one. That took us down to 824. We gapped down here in this green box, and then we closed it out at 823. This gapped up. We closed to the downside at 787. And this one, I need to clean up. I have to move it back because it actually touched right here on Friday the 21st, and that took us to 819. So congrats. Made money off of that play. This is still in play for this upcoming week, taking us down to $807 roughly. So we gapped up, which means we filled to the downside, and that definitely we could tickle this on Monday. And possibly even close it out. We just need to, I like all the gaps to close, so I root for the gaps to close. That way it doesn't haunt us again. It could come back as a support or resistance level if you look back, but I just like to get rid of them. This one closed on Tuesday the 25th. That took us to 881. Delete. Oops, wrong thing. Command Z. There, done. All right, that looks nice and tidy. And that one will take us to 930. Oops. And then other gaps. But again, we're moving farther away from that, going down still. Next, Boeing. Option R for the week ahead on Monday. Still in a downward channel. Everything's down. It appears only one ticker is in the green for the gap and goes, and that was Unilever for the week, ending the week. 173.31, the middle of the trend, takes us now to this line, close to an area we've already been, 174.23. Get this out of the way. 177.37, 178.95. Don't hold your breath to retrace to this level that I marked out back in 2024. That will take us to 180.42. To the south side, back to an area we've been, 170.04, and then down here, 169.43. Now, if we continue our path south, and I don't think we're just going to continue to go south, there will be fluctuations and bounces. But if we end down here, the middle of the trend could be 161.49, 158.51, and 164.67. For the previous week, this one opened up, this gap to the downside opened up out of the gate, and that touched Wednesday the 26th. That took us down to 179.18. We hit support and we bounced off and up to resistance and then a sell-off. All right. So that one's done. And then this gap opened up on Friday. That will take us to 179.08. And then we've got this puppy, well, that will take us to 162.15. And when will that touch? That could touch maybe by the middle of the week, Wednesday. Look, all we've done is play all the way up to retrace all the way down. And then possibly some, and then bounce. It's not going to just go down. Oh, and then we have a gap up here, not in the channel, not in the zone, not even close. Just something to be aware of. That we are retracing back to levels from 2024. Nike, next. Option R. All right, still going south for the week. Middle of the trend, 63.98, 65.52, 66.28, don't hold your breath, 67.04, 62.49, 61.69, 60.93. I don't know that we'll get here, but if we do, I will anticipate a bounce off of that. And if we continue our trajectory of going south, the middle of the trend could end the week at 60.06, 61.59, and maybe 58.52. Resistance, and then obviously we're bleeding out, going down. And then if we hit here, I'll anticipate a bounce. We could hit this level, that will be resistance, and we could just go sideways, or we could continue to go along and follow this pattern down. And then clear support and a buy-in. So this gap, we gapped down. So that means whenever we finish this gap play, it will take us to roughly back to an area we've been. That will be roughly 71.48, lining up with that which used to be a middle of the trend. Oh, let me change the color. That should be green. Note to denote a gap to the upside. So that's that for this week. Nothing opened up. It's just carryovers. All right. And I think, well, we've got this gap within a gap. Not in the channel, not even close. But that would take us to roughly 79 bucks. But I'm not going to even bother because we are moving, farther away from it. Okay, 2271 down 3.85% to the north side. Resistance 2313, retracing to an area we've been to before in 2024, 2340. Move this out of the way. 2340 and then roughly 2367. The middle of the trend, the baseline right there, 2260, 2205. 2180, and I don't think we'll get to this level, 2153, but if we do, you know what's going to happen. And for the week, we are still in a downward channel. See that? And by the end of the week, the middle of the trend could land at 2046, 21, or 1991. All right, let's look at the gaps. Well, let's talk about that one taking us down to 1991. Okay, and that could touch by the end of the week, maybe Thursday, if we continue to bleed out. Then we've got this little one. You have to grab it right there. Then what else? This one. Good Lord. Oh, that's ugly. All right, so this big one takes us to $29, which I've talked about forever. We were starting to get there, and then we started to bleed out. Okay, and then we have this one taking us to 27.35, and then did this other one, no, it did not close, so 25.85. All right, so that's, I've cleaned that up. So I really hope that this week, well, it's not going to, it'll be the following week, 1914. We're getting closer to that level. And then I will buy more, maybe at that level. 1851 is the 52-week low. Last one, I believe, RIVN. Is that the last one? Please tell me it's the last one. Oh, no, I got NEO after that. Okay, very quickly. Then I have to go eat. So the middle of the trend is right here at 1269. So we're at 1241. Resistance is at 1269. Another level of resistance. Obviously, many levels in between. I'm just giving you the ones that I track. 1328, 1357, 1388. To the south side, one level of support. You know, throw on your VWAP, your U-bots, your trend lines, your patterns that you like to play, whatever gets you to the same conclusion that I arrive at. There are many ways to do this. That's why you have to trade your style or it just won't make sense. 1209, 1180, 1149, but I play pretty conservatively since I don't need to take massive risks. All right. 1162. I like to spot the gaps to the downside as an entry point or for dollar cost averaging. Clear resistance. Going down, this turns into support, and then we bounced along there and then fell back down. But from down here going up, that is resistance. Going on the way down, that is support. So that's still in play. That's done. This one touched, yay, right there. Let me make that a little bit bigger. It touched on Thursday the 27th, roughly. That took us up to 1292, and that started on roughly Monday the 24th. So that is done. Delete. Oops, wrong one. Don't want to do that. I need to delete the price label. Delete. Got to put the cursor right on it. Delete. All right, what's happening to this one? 1353. We touched it right down here, but no cigar with closing it out. So this, oh, if we continue to go up, could touch and close out this week. Wouldn't that be lovely? So for this week, right here. This is where we are. So by the end of the week, we could land here at 1282, 1341, and even roughly 1401. I know we've got other gaps up here, but I'm not going to bother to mark it out yet. One gap at a time, unless it's to the south side. Then I like to really see ahead. Okay, that's that. And the last and final one is NEO. That was redundant. Last is final. Okay, 375. Let's show you the end of the week here. My goodness, what a steep decline. 375 down 5.78%. So this is where we are for Monday and then for Friday in a downward channel. While I'm here, I'm just going to give you the middle of the trend here. 268, yikes. Maybe 279, maybe 258. But I have hope because we aren't just going to go down like an escalator. There's going to be all kinds of movement with price, and it's going to whip us around. All right. Now let me just hit Option R to make it a little bit nicer. All right, so we are at this. Oh, why is the line way off? Ended on Friday, right there. Resistance, 381, 387, 392, 371, 360, 355, 349. The middle of the trend, well, let me remark that. Well, not because I haven't done it already, but just mark that out, roughly 371. So we could bounce off of that or continue to bleed out. So from the previous week, this is the middle of the trend, and the middle of the trend was right here at 442. Oh, how things have changed in 1 week, starting up there. So this gap will close out on Monday, taking us down to 371. This gap opened up last week, still in play, taking us to 398. This one opened up. It opened up because we flushed down south. And then whenever we reverse course, it'll be going up to 422. So not in the channel. This one is definitely not in the zone. These are just retracements that I am marking out. There we go. Okay. And looking at last week, bounce here at support, sell off at resistance here, and here that middle line turned into resistance. All right, there you have it. That is a look at your gap and go trades for the week of March 31st through April 4th. I will update other tickers hopefully soon. Thank you so much for all of the new subscribers. And if there is a ticker that you want me to go over, please let me know and I will make a video. All right, have a great trading week.